So the agents are everywhere, and for agents we need identity, and we want to make them decentralized, and we want to make them sovereign. And I see the big movement where people try to combine the AI with the blockchains and make the perfect pitch to the investors. But I also have seen a lot of founders that print the Bitcoin paper and put it on the wall. But unfortunately, I don't think that blockchains it's a good thing for the agents, identity, and decentralized AI in general. So, if you want to know more, you could, for example, read the articles of Maxim Orlovsky and why he built the RGB protocols. And it's not only about the fact that blockchains are hard to scale, because right now with the ZKP, the rollups, the multiple layers on top, and all other things, we could make them somehow scalable for some particular tasks. And it's not an open question. We will find a way. But this entire movement of the blockchains somehow broke into me. I have 20 or 30 minutes long video where I explain all the history of the web and how the Web 2 and Web 3 appear. But the trick of the Web 2 and Web 3 war was actually the quite successful marketing campaign of Ethereum, where they just demonized the web. But let's be honest, the Ethereum folks was not so honest with us either, because the Ethereum are decentralized, but Ethereum Consortium actually is the company, and the company that wants to make the profits, and the currency is real, and all other things. And they haven't talked about some obvious limitations of the blockchains, even with the powerful concept of the programmable economy. We have quite a limited thing. So for me, the closest analogy of the blockchains are glass cages. You are the bird in a glass cage that have no space to hide. And the problem is that this glass uh, is isolate you completely from the external world. So when you get to Ethereum blockchain, for example, you could not use anything outside of the blockchain. So as a result of this, you even more isolated than it was before. But the problem is that as far as you could not use any external services and any external storages, you either could not just hide something, but you could not store something, and everything gets a problem because then they invent the oracles and some possibilities to call something outside. But if it's not inside the blockchain, it's not accessible to you. So if it's on the blockchain, it's completely public and traceable, and you have no space to hide. So it's a nightmare for the privacy. It's even more centralized and authoritative as a classical central systems. So the blockchains are the modern centralization in a decentralized way, because it doesn't really matter if it's run in the same machine or different machines. It really matter that in a conceptual way it's the same network where you're locked, where you could not interrupt, where you could not talk with others, where you have no space to hide, where you have no space to store anything, and where you have just identity that bounded completely to your wallet and cryptography key. But the problem is that your identity is not the cryptography. Your identity is much richer, and actually The contracts as a programmable points. They also could be seen as agents, but the contracts between each other actually have quite limited interoperability, and the biggest problem that it's not free. You need to pay, and you need to pay real money to make anything happen in a blockchain. So what the alternatives to such systems we have nowadays? And yeah, we have some nice use cases of tokenization of the objects, transparent transactions, and all of the things, and the digital economy that still could use the blockchains even if they overpriced and controlled by they say that the blockchains are not controlled by anybody, but behind of every blockchains you have the companies that control them, and Ethereum is the good example actually. So it's a still open question who controls actually the decentralized solutions, but it's a separate topic for a separate glass of wine. But what we could do better for the agents if the blockchains actually is not the answer. It was the big movement of Web5 that right now dead because the Jay Dorsey is not interested anymore in SSI, but he actually tries to create the decentralized web nodes that combine somehow the good things of the blockchains with good old powered technology by the self-sovereign identity. So the self-sovereign identity is still the answer, because in self-sovereign identity you have the decentralized cryptographic identifiers, you have the ability to build your identity not as an identifier but a set of data, you have the ways of build the data exchange protocols, and on top of the data exchange protocols you actually could build the matured application layers that solve the agentic needs. So the answer, instead of using the blockchains that are horrible for privacy and have the glass cages, you could use the self-sovereign identity. But the self-sovereign identities, they also needs the networks, they needs the persistence, they needs the infrastructure, and this infrastructure still, after the couple of decades, is still an active build. And I see some substantial points of this infrastructure, like the DITCOM mediators, DITCOM protocol, TSP protocol, and all other things that actually Affinity as a company actively building. And I actively talking in my book about the sovereign agents. So if you want to know more about the blockchains, about the agents, and about the self-sovereign identity that empower the agents. Be prepared quite soon, maybe in a couple of months, as I will publish my first draft of the book Sovereign Agents and how the future actually could look like. See you next time. Choose.